There are stories that never die. They whisper through generations, hiding behind family traditions, prayers, and the things we lock away at night. Some say they're curses. Others call them inheritances. But sometimes, what we pass down isn't just blood. It's something older, something hungry, something that waits for the lights to go out. Tonight, you'll hear one family's story, how it began with a locked door and ended with a flame that refused to die. 7 confessions, 7 lights, 1 truth that should have stayed buried. This is the light that never dies. And if you're listening, keep a candle burning. Story 1. The Locked Room. I never questioned the locks on Grandpa's door. They were just part of the house, like the squeaky staircase or the humming radiator that never stopped complaining through winter. I grew up with the sound of those locks every night. 2 metallic clicks after dinner, and then silence. Dad always kept the keys on a ring, hooked to his belt. Big old-fashioned skeleton keys, polished brass worn smooth at the edges. When I was a kid, I thought they looked like treasure. Now I know they were anything but. We lived on the outskirts of a nowhere town in the Midwest, in a house older than anyone alive in it. The nearest neighbor was a half-mile away, and the trees out back were so thick they swallowed the sunlight by mid-afternoon. Grandpa's room was at the end of the narrow hall, past the kitchen, 1 window, 1 lamp, 1 door, with a lock that turned from the outside. He had lived with us for as long as I could remember. To me, he was a fixture, quiet, polite, always wearing the same faded sweater that smelled faintly of lavender and dust. He was kind too. He'd nod when I passed him in the hallway, eyes crinkling at the corners, smile soft but tired. Every night followed the same routine. Dinner at 7, dishes by 7:30. Grandpa folded his napkin, thanked Mom, patted Dad's shoulder, and shuffled to his room. Dad followed keys, jingling in his palm. A moment later, click, click. That sound used to mean bedtime. Later it meant, don't ask questions. One night when I was 12, I asked anyway. Why do we lock him in? I said. Dad didn't look up from the sink. For his safety, he said. He gets confused sometimes. Mom just kept drying the dishes, her shoulders tightening with every wipe of the towel. It was the kind of answer adults give when they need you to stop talking. So I did. But I never forgot the way she gripped that dish towel like she was wringing water from her throat. Years passed. I turned 17, old enough to drive, old enough to notice the things that didn't fit. Grandpa's window had bars, though we lived in the safest county for miles. His meals were different broth, and meat, chopped fine, always brought to him warm in a ceramic bowl. And the smell that leaked from under his door late at night, thick metallic sour, was nothing like old age. Sometimes lying in bed, I could swear I heard movement down that hall. Not the shuffle of slippers. Something slower. Wet. When I told Mom, she said it was the pipes. When I told Dad, he said, go to sleep. So I tried. But once you start listening for something, you can't unhear it. One evening in early fall, Grandpa didn't come to dinner. His chair sat empty, the napkin folded neatly beside his plate. Dad stood, wiped his hands, and went to the hall. A moment later, I heard the locks rattle. He came back looking pale. Your grandfather's tired tonight, he said. We'll let him rest. Mom served dinner anyway, chicken and potatoes. No one ate much. The air felt heavy, like we were all waiting for something that didn't happen. Afterward, when Dad went to lock the door, I followed quietly behind him. The hallway was dark, except for the dim light bleeding from the kitchen. Dad didn't notice me. He placed his ear against the wood for a moment, then turned the key. I saw his hand tremble. "Dad," I whispered. He flinched, half-turned. His eyes were wild for just a second, then calm again. "Go help your mother, son." I hesitated. "Is Grandpa okay?" He swallowed. "He's sleeping." Then the second click. That sound should have been final. But that night, I couldn't stop hearing it. It was around midnight when the power went out. No storm, no warning, just darkness, swallowing the house in a single blink. I woke up to silence so deep, I could hear my own heartbeat. From the hall came a faint sound, like someone humming under their breath. I sat up listening. It wasn't Mom. It wasn't Dad. The humming rose and fell, tuneless but steady. Then, words, muffled, whispered. I crept to my door, pressed my ear against it. The voice came from the end of the hall, Grandpa's room. I shouldn't have gone out there. I know that now. But curiosity is a kind of hunger, and that night I was starving. The floorboards groaned under my bare feet as I walked. The closer I got, the clearer it became. Grandpa was talking to someone. A second voice answered him, low and wet, like air bubbling through water. My skin prickled. I reached the door. The smell hit me first rot and copper, like old pennies soaked in spoiled milk. "Grandpa," I whispered. The whispering stopped. Then came the sound of something heavy shifting inside. I froze. My heart thudded in my ears. After a long, dragging moment, his voice came. "Go back to bed, Danny." My throat closed. He hadn't called me by my name in years. "Are you okay?" I whispered. Silence. Then softly, almost pleading, "Please, tell your father. The locks aren't enough anymore." I stumbled back down the hallway, every shadow breathing against the walls. I reached my room and shut the door, hand shaking on the knob. I didn't sleep that night. The power flickered back at dawn. By breakfast, Dad was already checking the locks. When I told him what Grandpa said, his face went white. He didn't speak for a long time. Then, "You didn't open the door, did you?" I shook my head. He exhaled hard, shoulders sagging. "Good. Don't ever. No matter what you hear." I waited for him to explain, but he didn't. He just left for work, like it was any other day. That week, Grandpa grew worse. He stopped coming out even for air. The humming continued at night, but it was changing no longer a voice, but a chorus of sounds that didn't belong in any human throat. Sometimes a gurgle, sometimes a rasp that made my stomach twist. Mom started sleeping with the radio on. Dad began locking not just Grandpa's door, but the basement, the pantry, even the shed. The house felt like a cage, and all of us were the ones trapped inside. The breaking point came 3 nights later. I woke to a crash metal on wood, followed by a groan that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Then silence. Then a single, muffled thump. I ran into the hallway before I could think. The air stank of rust and something sweet and wrong. Dad was already there, keys shaking in his hand, face slick with sweat. "Get back in your room," he snapped. "What's happening now?" He fumbled with the lock. From the other side came a dragging sound, flesh scraping against wood. The key slipped once, twice, before catching. He turned it just as something slammed into the door from inside. The whole frame shuddered. "Dad." He didn't answer. He braced his shoulder against the wood, pushing with all his weight. "Go wake your mother. Tell her to bring the bowl." "What bowl?" "Just do it," I ran. Mom was already in the kitchen, shaking, clutching a ceramic bowl filled with raw meat, bloody and glistening, the smell almost unbearable. "What is that?" I cried. She didn't answer. She just whispered, "Don't look." By the time we got back, Dad had the door cracked open an inch. Something inside was breathing fast, wet and rattling. He took the bowl, slid it through the gap, and slammed the door shut again. The sounds that followed weren't human. Wet chewing, low grunts. When it was over, Dad turned the lock again and leaned against the wall, eyes hollow. "He'll sleep now," he whispered. I didn't understand then. Not fully. But I couldn't unsee the way the blood had smeared across the floor, or the trail of dark liquid seeping from under the door. That night, I dreamed of keys that screamed when you turned them. Weeks passed. Routine returned. Almost. Grandpa's door stayed locked. The bowl disappeared from the kitchen. Mom's hands shook constantly. Dad stopped looking me in the eye, but the humming continued, softer now, almost like a lullaby. Sometimes late at night, I'd wake and swear I heard my name in it, whispered through the cracks in the door. Then one evening in October, everything changed again. Dinner was quiet, too quiet. The air smelled faintly metallic. Grandpa sat with us for the first time in months. He ate slowly, trembling eyes distant. When he finished, he looked up at me and smiled. "You've grown," he said. "You'll make a fine host." The spoon slipped from my hand, clattering against the bowl. "Dad," I whispered. But Dad just stared at his plate, unmoving. Grandpa pushed back his chair, stood carefully, and shuffled down the hall. Dad followed, keys jingling softly. I sat frozen, watching them disappear into the dark. Click, click. The sound echoed down the hall, like a death knell. It's been 3 days since then. No one's come out of that room. Mom barely eats. She says we have to trust the process. But last night, I heard the locks turn by themselves. 2 slow clicks from inside the room. And just now, as I'm writing this, I can hear footsteps in the hallway, slow dragging, but lighter than Grandpa's ever were. Something stopped outside my door. The knob turned once. Then came a whisper, close enough to feel the breath against the wood. "It's your turn now, Danny." Story 2. The Red Napkin. When I woke the next morning, sunlight cut through my curtains like knives. For a moment, I thought it had been a dream. The footsteps, the whisper, the voice, that didn't sound quite human. But when I looked towards the door, I saw them. 2 faint smudges, dark and greasy, right around the knob, as if someone had tried to turn it with wet, shaking hands. I didn't open the door for a long time. I just sat there, listening. The house was quiet except for the occasional creak of wood shifting in the morning air. Mom's voice floated faintly from the kitchen, humming the same tune Grandpa used to hum before bed. When I finally stepped out, the hallway felt colder. I glanced at Grandpa's door, still closed, still locked, a small dish of keys missing from the counter. Dad was already sitting at the table. His face looked older somehow, like he hadn't slept in years. Mom moved around him, quiet, careful, like she was afraid of waking something that wasn't asleep. She served oatmeal for breakfast. Bland, colorless, but she'd placed a red napkin beside each bowl. It stood out bright and wrong against the muted colors of the kitchen. The same kind Grandpa had pressed to his mouth the night he coughed up blood. I didn't touch mine. Neither did Dad. When I asked where Grandpa was, Mom just said, "Resting." I wanted to ask if that meant alive, but the words caught in my throat. There was something about the air that morning, heavy charged, like the moment before thunder breaks. By afternoon, Dad still hadn't left his chair. He stared at nothing, one hand resting on the keyring. Every so often, the metal chimed softly when his thumb brushed across it. When I sat across from him, He finally spoke. "Do you remember what I told you?" he said. His voice was dry, cracked like paper rubbing together. "About what the door? About never opening it?" I nodded. He stared at the wall for a long time. Then he whispered, "Sometimes rules exist because someone already broke them once." I didn't know what that meant, but the way he said it made me shiver. That night, I dreamed of a key turning in reverse, clicking open from the inside. The next evening, I came home from school to find Mom at the sink, scrubbing her hands raw. The smell of bleach burned my nose. She didn't notice me at first, her hands red and trembling. "Mom." She jerked upright eyes wide. For a moment, I thought she didn't recognize me. Then she forced a smile. "Dinner soon," she said, voice thin. "Go wash up." I glanced at the counter. The dish with Grandpa's keys was back, but there were only 2 keys on it now. When I asked about the third, Mom dropped the sponge. Her voice came out too quickly. "We only ever had 2. The lie was obvious, but I didn't press. Because right then, I noticed something else. A faint red stain on her sleeve. Not ketchup, not wine, blood. Dinner was stew again. Thick, salty, with chunks of meat that I didn't recognize. The smell made my stomach twist. Grandpa's chair was gone. Not empty, gone. The space where it had always been was bare, like it had never existed. I glanced at Dad. His bowl sat untouched. He didn't look up when I spoke. "Dad, where's Grandpa's chair?" He just shook his head slowly. Mom's hand twitched as she reached for the breadbasket. Her knuckles were white. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked. "We had to make room." That was when I noticed it, a faint trail of dark stains leading from the kitchen to the hallway. And for the first time, I realized how quiet the house had become. Even the old radiator had stopped humming. Halfway through the meal, Dad began coughing. Not loud, not violent, but steady, deep. Each cough left a small tremor in his hands. Mom froze mid-bite. Her fork hovered in the air. When the coughing stopped, he pressed his napkin to his mouth. Red bloomed across the fabric, just like Grandpa's. The next morning, Dad was gone. His truck still sat in the driveway, keys still on the hook. But his bedroom door stood open. The sheets dangled and damp. Mom told me he'd gone for a drive. He hadn't driven anywhere in days. I checked Grandpa's door, still locked. But there were 3 keys on the dish again, and they looked cleaner, newer, like they'd been remade. For the next few nights, I started hearing things again. The humming was back, louder this time. Sometimes I heard footsteps pacing the hall long after Mom went to bed. Once I woke up to something brushing against my window screen, slow dragging fingertips. Every morning, I found dead moths on the floor beneath it. Their wings were always wet. One night, I heard the humming stop abruptly, then a soft knock. "Danny," my name. Spoken in a voice that wasn't Dad's, but close enough to make my heart stop. I opened the door just a crack. The hallway was empty, but the smell hit me old blood and lavender. A faint shadow moved at the far end where Grandpa's door sat. The brass locks gleamed dull in the low light. I don't know what came over me, but I walked toward it. My hands were shaking so bad, I could hear the keys rattle in my pocket. When I reached the door, I placed my palm against it. It was warm, and something on the other side pressed back. I jumped away, heart hammering. There was whispering again, muffled and low. This time I heard 2 voices, one rasping, one clear. The second voice sounded like Dad. "You shouldn't be here," it said. "Then we need you to understand." The wood vibrated beneath my hand. For a moment I thought it might split. Then silence. The warmth faded. I ran back to my room and locked the door. But even after I turned off the light, I could still see the faint glow of red seeping under my door, like light bleeding from a wound. By morning, Mom was sitting at the table again. The red napkins were back, one by each bowl. When I sat down, she smiled faintly. "Eat, sweetheart. I'm not hungry." Her smile didn't fade, but her eyes did. "You should eat while you can." The way she said it chilled me. I noticed her hands. The nails were torn short, the skin raw. When I asked if she was okay, she just whispered, "It's better this way. It's better you stay here with me." She slid my bowl closer. The stew inside was dark, thicker than before. I stared at it, then at her. "Where's Dad?" I asked. Her lips trembled. "He's resting." I looked at the hallway. The locked door stood open, just a crack. And for the first time, daylight was spilling from the gap. I don't remember standing. I don't remember moving. I just remember the air growing heavier with each step, the floor sticky beneath my feet. Mom didn't stop me. When I reached the end of the hall, I pushed the door wider. The smell hit first metallic, rotten, and sweet. Grandpa's bed was gone. The furniture had been pushed aside. The walls were stained with something dark that pulsed faintly in the light, like veins under thin skin. In the center of the room sat the bowl. The same ceramic bowl Mom had used weeks ago. It was filled again, not with food, but with something red and thick and still moving. A shape leaned over it. It looked like Dad. It was Dad, or what was left of him. His eyes were glassy, the color of spoiled milk. His mouth hung open, jaw twitching, as if he were chewing air. When he turned toward me, his voice came out layered, like two people speaking through the same throat. "You shouldn't have opened the door." I stumbled back, but my foot caught something. Grandpa's chair, broken, the wood slick with something dark. I ran. I don't remember how far, only that I ended up outside, gasping in the cold air. The world looked the same, the trees, the dusty driveway, the empty fields. But everything felt wrong, off balance. When I turned to look at the house, I saw movement in the upstairs window. Mom stood there holding a red napkin in her hands. She pressed it to her mouth and smiled. Then slowly, she raised her other hand. A single brass key dangled from her fingers. She mouthed something I couldn't hear, but I didn't need to. I knew what she said. "It's your turn now. I don't live in that house anymore. The sheriff's office said it burned down last winter. Gas leak, maybe. They found nothing inside but melted brass and the remnants of an old ceramic bowl. But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I can still smell the stew. And every now and then, when I sit down to eat, I catch myself folding my napkin, once, twice, just like Grandpa did. Then I see the faint red mark spreading across the fabric, and I wonder if I've already started changing too. Story 3. The Spare Key. It's strange coming back to a place that shouldn't exist anymore. The house burned down 6 months ago. Or that's what they told me. Gas leak, faulty wiring, a tragedy. No remains, no answers. Just ash and speculation. But when I parked on the dirt road this morning, I could still see it standing crooked against the horizon, like a wound that refused to close. The same gabled roof, the same leaning porch, even the same window upstairs where my mother used to stand at night watching. For a long time, I just sat there in the driver's seat, gripping the wheel hard enough to leave crescents in my palms. I shouldn't have come back. But I didn't really have a choice. Not after what I found in the mail 2 nights ago. A plain envelope, no return address. Inside a single brass skeleton key, old, polished smooth by use, and on the tag tied to it in my father's handwriting, for when it's ready. The house groans when I step onto the porch. The boards bow under my weight, coughing up soot with every creak. The front door is gone, reduced to a blackened frame. Beyond it, the hallway stretches into darkness. It smells like wet ashes and something faintly sweet. The same metallic sweetness I used to smell beneath Grandpa's door. I tell myself, it's just memory. Trauma, maybe. That's what the therapist said. What you smell, what you hear, what you think you see. It's just your brain replaying trauma patterns. But trauma doesn't hum. And as I take my first step inside, I hear it again, faint, tuneless, drifting through the charred air. Grandpa's lullaby. Every room is the same, yet different. The wallpaper peels like dead skin, and the ceiling hangs low with soot. The kitchen table still stands, one leg scorched but holding. On top of it, something gleams faintly. I move closer. It's a dish, porcelain, cracked but intact. Inside, sitting in a small puddle of blackened residue, another key. Not brass, iron, heavier, colder. I pick it up and the air shifts. It's subtle at first, the faint sound of breathing in the walls, the floorboards tightening beneath my shoes. Then the house exhales, and I swear I hear it whisper my name. I stumble backward, clutching the key. Stop it, I mutter. You're not real. You're gone. But the house doesn't care. The hum builds again, threading through the air, wrapping around me like a memory. Danny. The voice is soft, familiar. Mom. I turn toward the hallway. It's darker than it should be, a tunnel of black that seems to swallow light whole. But at the end, I see it Grandpa's door, still standing, still locked. It shouldn't be there. It burned with everything else, and yet it waits. Every instinct screams at me to leave, but my hand moves anyway, pulling the brass key from my pocket, the one from the letter. It feels heavier now, warmer. When I lift it, it fits the lock perfectly. The teeth slide in smooth, like it was made for this door. I hesitate only a second, then I turn it. Click. The air goes still, and then the smell hits iron meat and lavender. The room inside isn't burned. It's pristine, untouched. The curtains are drawn, the lamp glows softly, and the bed is neatly made. It's exactly as it was before everything happened. And sitting on the bed is my mother. At least it looks like her. Her hair is longer now, streaked with gray. Her eyes are hollow, sunken, but the smile is the same. I knew you'd come back, she says. My mouth goes dry. You're dead. She tilts her head, that same small gesture she used to make when she was scolding me for something trivial. Not dead, she says softly. Just keeping it alive. Her gaze drifts to the key in my hand. You brought it, didn't you? I nod before I realize what I'm doing. Good, she whispers. It needs you now. Something moves under the bed. A low scrape, like fingernails on wood. I take a step back. What needs me? She doesn't answer. She just keeps smiling, though her eyes fill with tears that trail down her ashen cheeks. You shouldn't have left it hungry, she says. Then she points, not at me, but behind me. The door slams shut. The lock turns on its own. The room seems to breathe. The wallpaper pulses faintly expanding and contracting in rhythm with the air. Mom, I whisper. She's still sitting there, but her smile is stretching now, too wide. Skin cracking at the corners of her mouth. The humming grows louder, turning into something like words. But they're not human. They sound wet, guttural, ancient. The floor under my feet vibrates, and I realize the sound isn't coming from her, It's coming from the bed. Something slides out from underneath. A pale, trembling hand. The nails are black, the flesh paper thin. It claws at the floor, pulling the rest of it into view. It's Dad, or what's left of him. His eyes are gone, sockets dark and empty, and his jaw hangs crooked. He's whispering something, voice barely audible. Feed it. I freeze. Feed what his hand reaches for my leg, cold and sticky. The house, he gurgles. It needs a keeper. I try to back away, but my foot hits something. The bowl. It wasn't empty anymore. Inside, our heart dark wet, still beating slowly. My mother stands. The tears are gone. She looks younger now, healthier. You see, she says, voice trembling with joy. It never dies. It just passes on. She steps closer, her shadow stretching across the walls. It's your turn now, Danny. I run. The door doesn't open. The lock resists. I slam against it until my shoulder goes numb, but it doesn't budge. Behind me, the room changes. The walls start to shimmer, no breathe. Flesh-colored veins pulse under the wallpaper. The smell grows stronger, suffocating. Mom's voice echoes around me, splitting into dozens of whispers. It's okay, she says. Once you feed it, it will take care of you. It will love you. Dad's body twitches, dragging itself closer. His hand leaves streaks of blood across the floor. You'll never be alone again, he croaks. The key in my pocket burns against my thigh. I grab it. The metal sears my fingers, but I don't let go. With shaking hands, I jam it into the lock. It turns halfway, then stops. The humming stops too. Everything freezes. Then from the other side of the door, I hear a voice whisper. Danny, it's me. My voice. I don't remember what happened next. When I woke, it was night again. The door was open, the room dark. The house was silent. Mom and Dad were gone. Only the bowl remained sitting perfectly centered on the floor. And inside it, the brass key. Clean, cool, waiting. I didn't call anyone, didn't tell a soul. I just walked out into the cold, locked the door behind me, and threw the key as far into the field as I could. I heard it hit the ground once, then silence. I left and never looked back. That was 3 weeks ago. Tonight, as I'm writing this, my apartment lights keep flickering. The air smells faintly of lavender. I went out to check the breaker, and when I came back, there it was, on my kitchen table. A small brass key, clean, cold, waiting. And next to it, a note written in my own handwriting. You can't throw away what's already inside you. Story 4. What Grandpa was hiding. You can't throw away what's already inside you. That's what the note said. I don't remember writing it. I don't even remember owning that pen. But the handwriting was mine, every loop, every hesitation. The key sat beside it, gleaming faintly in the dim light of my apartment. I'd thrown it into a field miles away, but here it was again, clean, cold, waiting. For 3 days I tried to ignore it. I left it in a drawer shoved under bills and old photos. But every night, I heard it a faint ringing, like metal scraping against glass. And the smell followed me. Lavender, iron, rot. Just like the house. Just like him. On the 4th night, I woke up choking. The air in my apartment was thick, damp. My sheets clung to my skin. When I opened my eyes, I saw something glinting in the dark. The key sitting on my chest. I flung it across the room, heart hammering. It hit the wall with a soft metallic chime, then vanished into shadow. A second later, the humming began, low, tuneless, crawling up from the floorboards. And underneath it, a whisper, "Come home." By morning, I'd packed my things. I told myself I just needed to see it. The house, the ashes, the place where everything went wrong. Maybe if I faced it, it would stop haunting me. That's the lie you tell yourself before you open the door. The road back to town was half buried under snow. The fields were grey, lifeless. The trees bent low under frost, like they were bowing to something buried beneath them. When I reached the hill overlooking our property, I almost turned back. There shouldn't have been a house, but there it was, whole again. The porch light was on. Inside, everything looked new. Fresh paint, clean floors, the scent of polish and lavender. A pot simmered quietly on the stove. Stew. And sitting at the table, my mother. She smiled when she saw me as if nothing had happened. "Dinner's almost ready," she said. "Sit down, sweetheart." Her voice trembled on the last word, like it hadn't been used in years. I stared at her. "You're dead." She laughed softly. "You always say that. Sit, Danny. You must be starving." The smell of the stew made me dizzy. It was rich, heavy, metallic. I could almost taste the blood in the air. My stomach twisted. "Where's Dad?" Her smile faltered for the first time. "Resting." The same answer. Always the same answer. The back hallway looked exactly as it had before the fire. The faded wallpaper, the ticking clock, the yellow door at the end. I didn't need to look. I already knew it was there. But the keys were gone from their dish. Only one remained, small brass, shining like it had been waiting. The humming came from behind the door. This time, it was deeper, heavier. It didn't sound like Grandpa anymore. It sounded like several voices layered on top of one another. Mom called after me, but I barely heard her. The floorboards creaked as I walked. The smell of rot grew thicker, almost sweet. I stopped in front of the door. Something inside shifted, slow, deliberate, like breath pressed through wet cloth. The humming stopped. Then softly, "Danny." I didn't recognize the voice. It wasn't Grandpa. It wasn't Dad. It was mine. The key was already in my hand. I didn't remember taking it. When I turned it, the lock clicked once, then twice. The air rushed past me as the door swung open, like the room had been holding its breath for years. And there he was, Grandpa, or what was left of him. He sat upright in the chair, hands folded neatly in his lap. His skin was grey thin, stretched tight over bones. His eyes were milky, staring straight ahead. He looked like a corpse. Until he moved, his head tilted toward me, vertebrae cracking like dry twigs. "Why'd you come back?" he rasped. My mouth went dry. You're supposed to be dead." He smiled faintly. The skin around his lips tore. Supposed to. The walls pulsed around him faintly at first, then stronger. Veins bulged through the plaster, thick and dark, throbbing in rhythm with his voice. "You ran from it," he whispered, "but it found you." What did he look down? Something moved under his shirt, a bulge crawling just beneath the skin of his chest. "I tried to keep it contained," he said, breath rattling. "All those years, locked in that room. It needed someone. It needed family." He lifted a trembling hand. His fingers were black at the tips, nails split down to the flesh. "It's hungry, Danny. Always hungry." The thing beneath his ribs pressed outward, stretching the fabric of his shirt. A wet sound followed like meat tearing. I stepped back. "Stop." He didn't. The skin split open, and something pale forced its way out. It looked like a hand, at first too long, too thin, slick with blood. Then another. Then a head. Not human. No eyes, no mouth. Just a featureless mask of flesh. It dragged itself, free, glistening strings of tissue snapping as it fell to the floor with a sound I'll never forget. Grandpa slumped forward, chest hollow, whispering through torn lips, "Feed it." The thing moved toward me, slow but deliberate, leaving a smear of blood in its wake. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I turned and bolted for the hall. The door slammed behind me before I even touched it. The lights flickered. The floor seemed to breathe. Every portrait on the wall, all those old family photos, had changed. Grandpa's face, Mom's, Dad's, they were all looking at me now, and their mouths were open. I ran to the kitchen. Mom was gone. The pot on the stove still bubbled thick and red. When I looked inside, I saw movement. Fingers, boiled to the bone. I don't remember how I got outside. One moment, I was in the kitchen. The next, I was on the porch, gasping cold air. The night was black, the sky starless. But I wasn't alone. At the edge of the yard, something stood watching me. Tall, thin. Its skin shimmered faintly translucent, like candle wax. It didn't move, but I could feel it breathing long, slow, synchronized with mine. Then, from behind me, a voice whispered, "It's already in you." I turned and saw my reflection in the window. The veins under my skin were dark, pulsing, and just for a second, I saw it, something moving beneath the flesh of my chest, pressing upward. I ran until my lungs felt like they'd tear. Down the dirt road, past the dead fields, through the cold night air. I didn't stop until I reached the old gas station on the edge of town. The attendant looked up when I burst through the door. "You okay, man?" I opened my mouth to answer, but the words caught in my throat. Because behind him, reflected in the glass refrigerator doors, I saw my mother, standing right behind me. Her mouth was moving, but no sound came out. Then in the reflection, I saw her raise her hand. She was holding the brass key. That was 3 nights ago. Since then, I've been staying in motels, moving every day. But it's spreading. I can feel it. Sometimes, when I press a hand to my chest, I feel it beating. Not my heart, but something deeper, slower. When I close my eyes, I see flashes of that room. The walls, the bowl, the thing that crawled out of Grandpa. And I hear his voice. It's family now. I'm writing this from a rest stop outside of town. There's no signal out here. No sound but the wind and the occasional truck. The key's sitting on the passenger seat beside me. I tried to throw it out the window twice. Both times it ended up back in my pocket. It's warm now, almost pulsing. I think I know what that means. If anyone finds this recording, don't go near that house. Don't touch the key. Don't listen when it calls your name. Because the thing my grandfather was hiding, it doesn't die. It just waits. And once it finds a way in, you'll never get it out. Story 5. The Inheritance. I haven't slept in 6 days. Every time I close my eyes, I feel the heartbeat. Not mine, it's slow, patient, waiting under the ribs. I drove east until the highway ended through 2 states I barely remember. And still the key rides in my pocket like a second pulse. It's warm, even when the air isn't. I tell myself, I'll throw it into the ocean. That salt water kills everything. But when I reach the shoreline, my hands refuse to open. I stand there in the wind, staring at the waves breaking against the rocks, and all I can think about is my father's voice. It has to stay in the family. The first night by the coast, I dream of the house again. Only now it isn't burned or rebuilt. It's alive. The roof rises and falls with each breath. The walls glisten like wet skin. Every window is an eye. Inside, I can see them all. Grandpa in his chair, Dad, At the table, Mom humming by the stove. They turn toward me in unison, and with one voice, they whisper, "Welcome home." I wake screaming. The motel clerk bangs on the door, asks if I'm okay. I tell him it was just a nightmare. He leaves, but I can still hear him humming through the wall after he's gone. Morning brings fog, thick enough to hide the ocean. I drive inland desperate for distance, for clarity, anything that isn't the smell of salt and lavender. By noon, the key starts to vibrate in my pocket. When I touch it, the hum stops. But the warmth spreads up my arm like fever. That's when the nosebleed starts. It doesn't stop for hours. I end up in a diner off an empty stretch of highway. Old place. Plastic booths smell of coffee and bleach. The waitress looks at me like I've been buried and dug up again. "You look like hell," she says, pouring me coffee. "Family trip," I answer. She laughs softly. Ain't they all? When she leaves, I catch my reflection in the chrome napkin holder. My eyes look wrong, darker the pupils too wide. And under the skin of my neck, something shifts. Not big, just enough to prove it's real. I don't remember paying or leaving. I just remember driving again, the sky bleeding into night. At a rest stop, I pull over to breathe. The air tastes like iron. When I look down, the key is gone. For one wild moment, I think maybe it's over. Then I see the footprints, bare wet, leading away from the car and into the trees. I follow them. They wind between the trunks deeper into the woods until the trees start to thin. And then I see it. A house. Not mine, but it is. Same shape, same yellow door. Only smaller, older, like a memory built from rot. The footprints lead straight to the porch. Hanging from the handle is the key. I don't touch it. I can't. Because through the window, I can see a figure sitting at the table. He looks like me. He's older, maybe 10 years, hair longer, eyes hollow. He's writing something in a notebook, the light from the lamp flickering across his face. And he's humming. I can't move. The glass between us fogs with every breath I take, but he doesn't look up. Then slowly he stops writing. He turns his head. Our eyes meet. And when his mouth moves, I hear my voice from inside the house whisper, "You're late." I run. Branches whip across my face, the ground sliding under my shoes. I don't look back until the trees break and the highway lights appear ahead. By the time I reach the car, the passenger door is open. The key is sitting on the seat. Next to it, the notebook I saw on the table. Inside, the pages are filled with words I don't remember writing. At first, they're just lines, names, dates, places, then drawings, the house, the bowl, the thing that came out of Grandpa. And near the end, a list of instructions written in frantic pen strokes. 1. Lock the door twice. 2. Feed it once a week. 3. Never leave it hungry. 4. When it calls your name, answer. 5. Pass it on before it takes you. The last line is smeared with blood. It knows you're running. I drive until dawn, until the road becomes water again. This time, I don't hesitate. I take the key and throw it into the sea. Hard. It vanishes beneath the surface with a soft splash. No sound, no ripple. For the first time in weeks, I feel empty, free. Then I hear the engine start behind me. My car. No one's inside. The headlights flare cutting through the fog, and I see my reflection in the windshield smiling back at me. I wake on the shore at sunrise. The car is gone. The key is in my hand. There's no point running anymore. I rented a small room above a hardware store in a town whose name I can't remember. The landlord says the last tenant left in a hurry, left furniture behind. When I move in the air, already smells faintly of lavender. I tell myself it's coincidence. But that night, I hear the humming again, and when I look down, I see the veins on my wrist glowing faintly gold, like light leaking through cracks in old wood. I start writing. Every night I sit at the table and record what happened, what's still happening. I think maybe if I put it into words, it'll stop being real. That's the lie my grandfather told himself. That's the lie my father lived by. But it's not a curse, not really. It's a duty. Something older than all of us. Something that needs a keeper. 3 nights ago, a woman knocked on my door. She was lost, she said. Her car had broken down outside town. She looked tired, hungry. I invited her in. While she ate, I noticed her eyes linger on the brass key hanging from the wall. She asked what it opened. I told her the truth. It opens what should stay closed. She laughed, thought I was joking. But when she stood to leave, she reached out and touched it. Just brushed her fingers along the edge. It burned her. She screamed. And in that moment, I saw the faint shimmer under her skin, the way the veins pulsed, the way her pupils widened. It had chosen. She left before dawn. I didn't stop her. I didn't have to. It always finds its way. That's the rule. That's the inheritance. Tonight, the humming has stopped. The house is quiet again. I feel light, almost peaceful. I sit at the table, staring at the notebook, the last page still blank. Outside, the fog presses against the window like a living thing. I can hear footsteps in the hall, slow, careful. Someone stops outside my door. A knock, then a familiar voice. Dad, are you in there? I freeze, because I don't have a son. Not yet. Story 6. The town that lights candles. There's something wrong with this town. I knew it the second I saw the candles. Every window, every porch, every single house on the road, each one burning a small flame in the dark. It would have been beautiful if it didn't feel like a warning. I pulled over in front of the diner to ask for directions, but nobody looked up. Everyone just sat there in silence, eyes fixed on the flickering wax, like it was holding them hostage. I thought it was a power outage at first, until I noticed the streetlights were still on. So why the candles? My name's Danny. Or maybe it used to be. It's been months since I left the coast, since I tried to drown the key and the thing that came with it. But I still wake to the smell of lavender and smoke. And sometimes when I look at my reflection, I see a second heartbeat pulse behind my ribs. The key never left me. It just changed shape. Now it looks like a burn scar on my chest. A perfect outline, brass-colored glinting faintly when the light hits it right. The town didn't exist on any map. 1 minute, the highway stretched out endless and empty. The next, I was driving through narrow streets lined with houses that looked older than the road itself. A sign leaned crooked at the entrance. Sylvan Hollow, Bob. 6:23. The paint was fresh, the wood wasn't. Everywhere I looked, candles burned window ledges, porches, sidewalks, even the hoods of cars. A small ritual repeated 100 times over. I rolled the window down and called out to a man sweeping his porch. He looked up, slow eyes, dull, and said, "You're late." Then he went back to sweeping. At the diner, the waitress didn't ask for my order. She just brought me coffee and a small wax candle, lighting it before she spoke. "You'll want to keep that burning," she said. "Why?" Her eyes flicked toward the window. "Because when it goes out, they start to notice." "Who?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "The ones the candles are for." By dusk, the streets glowed gold, every window lit from within, every flame trembling in the wind. The air smelled faintly of wax and rot. As I walked past a row of houses, I noticed something strange. The candles weren't melting. Their flames burned steady, unbothered by the breeze, each one identical in height. That's when I realized they weren't candles at all. They were wicks, long black gourds, half buried in small glass jars, filled with something thick and dark. When I leaned closer, I saw it the faint shimmer of blood. The church bell rang at midnight. The sound was soft, hollow, almost human. People began stepping out of their homes, holding their candles like prayer offerings. They didn't speak. They didn't look at one another. They just walked, slow, steady, toward the woods at the edge of town. A procession of light, swallowed by trees. I followed. The woods were silent, except for the faint hiss of the flames. The deeper we went, the more the air changed. It grew warmer, heavier. I could smell lavender again. The same scent that haunted me since Grandpa's door. The same one that clung to the key. At the center of the clearing stood a single house, small, yellow, familiar. My house, or the house it had become. The crowd formed a circle around it. Each person placed their candle on the ground. The light flickered, forming a ring of fire. And then they began to hum. It wasn't music. It was the sound of breathing made ritual. Hundreds of voices exhaling in perfect rhythm. And beneath it, I heard a second sound, the heartbeat. Slow, massive, coming from beneath the ground. I tried to step back, but someone grabbed my arm. An old woman. Eyes milky white face, pale with wax. "You shouldn't have come," she said. "It's your turn." Before I could speak, she pressed something into my hand. A candle, freshly lit. Only this one burned blue. When I looked down, the wax wasn't wax at all. It was skin. My skin. The flame hissed, and I felt the heat bloom inside my chest. The burn scar pulsed the outline of the key, glowing through my shirt. The humming stopped. The crowd turned toward me. Hundreds of faces, blank, expectant. In the silence, something whispered beneath the earth. "Welcome home." The ground split open, not like a quake, slow or deliberate, as though something beneath was pushing upward. Hands, hundreds of them, slick with blood, clawed through the soil. They reached for the candles, wrapping trembling fingers around the jars. The townspeople didn't move. They just watched. And one by one, the hands pulled the flames downward, feeding them into the dirt until only darkness remained. Only my candle still burned. The blue flame grew brighter, stretching tall as my arm. And then I saw it. The thing rising from the pit. It wasn't the creature from Grandpa's chest. It was larger, 100 of them fused together. A shape without form, flesh shifting like waves. Dozens of faces pressed against its surface, stretching, mouthing words that made no sound. I recognized them. Mom, Dad, Grandpa, all of them. Their mouths moved together, forming one word that echoed inside my skull feed. The crowd fell to their knees. The air throbbed with heat. I dropped the candle, but it didn't fall. It floated, hovering inches above the ground, burning blue and gold. The creature leaned toward me, its surface pulsing. It smelled like home. I ran. Through the woods, through the dark, until my lungs tore and my legs gave out. When I looked back, the forest was on fire, not with heat, but with light. Thousands of candles burning blue. The town was gone. In its place stood a field of flickering souls. And above them, the sky pulsed in rhythm with the thing's heart. I woke up at dawn in my car parked miles away. My hands were covered in wax. The passenger seat was full of candles, all unlit. And sitting on the dashboard was the key, grass clean and glowing faintly blue. I don't know if I escaped. I don't know if anyone ever does. But when I drive through other towns now, I watch their windows. And every once in a while, I see it a single candle burning where there shouldn't be one. No power outage, no reason. Just a small trembling light in the dark, waiting. They say Sylvan Hollow burned down years ago. They say no one survived. But last night, I stopped at a rest station and met a man selling homemade candles. He smiled when I asked where he was from. Sylvan Hollow, he said. We keep the lights burning. He pressed one of the candles into my hand. Its wax was warm. The wick was red. And when I held it up to the light, I saw something small, sealed inside, a brass key. Story 7. The light that never dies. There's a candle burning on my dashboard. I didn't light it. I woke up an hour ago on the side of the highway, with the engine dead and frost crawling up the windshield. And there it was, flickering steady in the cup holder flame, unmoving, no matter how the wind pushed through the cracks in the window. The wax smells like lavender. Of course it does. It's followed me across 3 states, across oceans, across lifetimes. The light that never dies. I thought I was done with all of it. Sylvan Hollow. The house, Grandpa. The thing that crawled out of his chest. I buried them all in the dark corners of my mind, sealed under guilt and silence. But you can't bury light. It just waits for the dark to fall again. It started small this time, flickers in the corner of my vision, a faint hum when the night went quiet. At first, I thought it was tinnitus, a phantom ringing from months of sleeplessness. But then, I started hearing voices inside the hum words, buried in the static. Come home. It's still hungry. You're next. I told myself it was stress, that I was hearing what I expected to hear. But last night, I dreamed of the sea again, and under the waves, 1,000 tiny lights burned swaying like jellyfish, each one shaped like a key. When I woke up, I was already driving. No memory of packing, no memory of starting the car. The road signs all pointed to nowhere, but somehow every mile brought me closer to it. The place where it began, the house. Except when I arrived, there was no house anymore, just a field, and a single candle burning in the center. The wax was black, the flame was gold. It didn't flicker, it pulsed slow and steady like a heartbeat. I stood there for a long time, breathing the cold air, waiting for something, a whisper, a shadow, anything. But there was only silence, until I looked down. My reflection stared back at me, in the wax, not in the puddle beneath it, but inside it. The surface rippled, and I saw myself sitting in a chair, pale, and still eyes wide open. Then, in the reflection, I smiled. That's when the ground split. The earth opened beneath the candle, slow at first, then fast enough to swallow it whole. Light burst upward, blinding white, spreading like veins through the soil. I stumbled back, but it was already too late. The field began to breathe. Every blade of grass shimmered. The dirt pulsed beneath my feet. Something alive was waking below. And in the air, that same humming low, infinite, resonating through my bones. The light, the family, the hunger. They weren't separate. They were one. I ran back to the car and slammed the door, but the radio came on by itself. The dial spun through static, then stopped. A voice whispered through the speakers. My voice. You can't run forever, Danny. The headlights flicked on, illuminating the field. It wasn't empty anymore. Hundreds of figures stood there, glowing faintly from within skin, translucent like wax. Their eyes burned like candle flames. Their mouths were open in silent song. And at the center of them all stood her, my mother. She looked exactly as she did the night Dad locked Grandpa's door for the last time. Hair tied back, lavender apron, that soft, tired smile. She lifted her hand and beckoned. Behind her, the ground shimmered and the yellow door rose from the soil. No walls, no house, just the door standing on its own. The brass locks gleamed. "Come home," she mouthed. The candle on my dashboard flared bright blue. The key scar on my chest burned. I didn't remember grabbing the door handle, but suddenly I was standing in the field again, and the door was open. Inside was darkness, not absence, presence. Thick, heavy waiting. I took one step forward. The air smelled like stew and blood and flowers. Another step, and I heard them. The humming, the whispers, the voices of everyone I'd ever loved, braided into one terrible harmony. "Feed us," they said. "Keep us alive." In the center of the dark room stood a chair, and sitting in that chair, me. Older, broken, hands folded neatly in my lap, just like Grandpa. The older version of me smiled. "You did good," he said softly. "You brought it home." His eyes glowed faint gold pupils, gone skin translucent. "What is it?" I whispered. "What have we been feeding?" He tilted his head. "The truth." He stood slow and deliberate, and the room brightened, not with fire, but with light leaking from his skin. Each vein glowed, each breath shimmered. "It's not a curse, Danny. It's continuity. The light keeps the dark from swallowing everything." I shook my head. "It kills. It consumes." He smiled sadly. "Everything that burns consumes, but it also creates." He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the faint outline of a brass key embedded in his chest. "I kept it safe as long as I could," he said. "Now it's your turn." He reached out his hand. Inside his palm flickered a tiny flame, pure white, silent, perfect. When he pressed it to my chest, I felt it slip beneath my skin like breath drawn inward, pain and warmth, light and blood. The humming grew louder until it wasn't sound anymore. It was everything. The floor vanished. The walls dissolved. The dark turned to gold. And in that blinding light, I saw it all. The town, the candles, the watchers, every life, every death, every flame connected by one endless thread of fire. I woke up on the floor of the field covered in ash. The candle was gone, the door was gone, but the light was still inside me. It hums beneath my ribs, now steady as a second heart. I see through it, through time, through memory. Every candle that burns, every match, struck in fear or faith, they're all pieces of it, pieces of us. We are the light that never dies. Sometimes when the nights grow too quiet, I see flickers on the horizon. A farmhouse window, a candle in the woods. Someone new, holding a flame they don't yet understand. I want to warn them, to tell them to snuff it out before it's too late. But I can't, because if the light dies, everything else goes with it. That's the truth Grandpa hid. The light feeds on us, but without it, there's only darkness. And the darkness hungers too. I'm writing this from a small cabin near the coast. The waves outside crash in rhythm with my heartbeat. The wax on the table is warm, even when the room is cold. I've lit 7 candles tonight. Each one burns a little brighter than the last. And when I look closely, I can see faces flickering in the flames. Mom, Dad, Grandpa, even me. All whispering the same words through the fire. Keep it burning. If you're hearing this, light a candle. Keep it close. Don't let it go out, not for a second. Because if you ever find yourself alone in the dark and the humming starts again, It means the light is gone, and it's coming for you next. You made it to the end. Maybe you're wondering if Danny ever escaped. Maybe you're wondering if the key to the house or the candles were ever real. But here's the thing. Every story starts somewhere, and sometimes it ends exactly where it began. Because light never dies. It just finds another home, another voice to tell its story. So if you're hearing the hum tonight, if you smell lavender and smoke in the dark, don't blow out your candle, because it's already too late. This has been NightLore. Sleep softly, if you can.